Hey everybody on YouTube. Today I thought I'd take another moment to do another vintage video repair, and this applies to the BetaCam SP and the actual loading mechanism for the small and large shell. I've been getting a lot of emails. I've got one from Tony and Bob and Robert. It just goes on and on and on. A lot of these guys are having what's called loading carriage system problems and error codes, which pertains to the motors in this unit, and they're properly not aligning up with the shell size when you load a small shell or a large shell. Alright, I thought I'd take out a moment to walk you through what you need to check and how to do the alignment on this machine. So I hope you guys pay attention. You know, I got some pictures of this. I'm going to try to do it in pictures and explain it to you, so please pay attention and follow exactly what I'm telling you. If you can't get this to align up properly for the shells, you're doing something wrong. This is exactly how you do it, and this goes out to many people, especially Tony and various people on YouTube and various places, so please pay attention, okay? Alright, first of all, you want to tip the machine upside down. You want to take the bottom cover off, okay? And you'll see that the motors are exposed and you got ribbons that connect to the motors. You could either unplug it from the board that the motor plugs into, or unplug it from the side board where the motor has the ribbon connecting. You could unplug it from either location, it doesn't really matter, but make sure you unplug those ribbons before you get started. Okay, after you unplug those ribbons on the motors, you want to flip the unit back upside down, and you want to remove the loading carriage. Okay, you got the two screws, you take the holding plate down, and you take the entire loading carriage out. Make sure to unplug it and take the carriage out and have it on the table. Okay, you're going to roll back that carriage to the beginning, the starting position of the carriage. Make sure to do that right off the bat. Get that done with. Make sure it's in the loading position. Okay, now you're going to want to, basically, you're going to want to advance the loading ring. Okay, the loading ring is the loading ring. When the tape loads, the ring wraps it around the drum. You got to make sure the loading ring is back in the loading position. So if you see where my finger is, I'm rolling the ring back, and the loading position for that ring should be where the little roller is in the front, like it is in the picture, not around or at the top or around towards the drum and the upper parts. You want it to be down on the lower parts facing you. So if you look at the picture, that's exactly where the roller is supposed to be. So make sure to roll it back to that position. Okay, so let's get started here. First of all, you're going to want to remove the motor covers. That's the little round covers on top of the actual motor. It has two little screw on each one of them. Make sure you take those little motor screw covers off. Okay, get those little round covers completely off. Then you're going to want to remove the slide, their alignment slides for keeping it in lined up so it slides properly as it goes up and down. You want to remove those slides which have two screws on it. So take the two screws off each one of those and take the slides out. Okay. Now, basically, you're going to want to take the motor. You see where the gear is. You got that little motor there. You can actually roll that motor. You want to roll the motor till you get the actual little arm. It's an actual armature that connects to the motor that helps push it up and down. You want to get that in a halfway position, as the photo shows you. If you see this picture, that's what it's supposed to look like. You need to roll that till you get it in a half position. Okay, so you can expose the C-clamps. Okay? Okay, you're going to want to remove those C-clamps. Okay? Get those off. Make sure you remove those C-clamps, because this is a kind of a complicated situation, because you got to remove the rail and the motor also. So after you got those C-clamps out, you're going to want to push up, or well, actually, you're going to want to remove the little V. There's a little V holder at the top where it's got a screw in it that both rails connect to. You want to take that little V out too, also. So make sure you unscrew that. Take that little plastic V out. Remove the C-clamps, in the actual bent arm position in the photo I'm showing you. Okay? All right, and now you want to push the rails. You just want to slide them from the bottom up and they should slip right out of the loading holder in the bottom of each side. All right? And once you do that, both motors should be free. You should be able to actually lift the entire motor out with the rails still attached inside. So you want to take the entire motor out with the rails. Take them straight out. Okay? Now, after you get the motors pulled out, okay, you have, you basically have the little gear. You got your little winding motor, which is in the center, or they call it a worm motor. Then you got the big round gears, and you got the smaller gears with the arms, okay? You want to remove the clips on each one of those. There should be 4 clips, a clip on each one of those. Remove all 4 clips, okay? And once you remove those clips, you want to take, all 4 of them should just pull right out. Okay? After you get all 4 of those pulled out, you're going to want to clean them, spray oil them down with a light oil. And you also want to pull out the rails on the motors and spray those down with light oil as well. Okay? Get those nicely oiled. Get the gears all cleaned up and lightly oiled. And then after you got the little gears pulled out, you got the 2 big gears, and then you got the 2 small gears with the arms on it. All right, you will notice that one of these arms has 2 little plastic protrusions, okay? This particular arm controls what type of tape is in the machine. When you put a tape, the sensor actually senses the type of tape it is, and this particular arm with the little sensor will tell the actual computer part of the player to actually advance. Okay, it's a small tape. It tells you that you're putting a small tape in, and that particular arm and sensor will advance it so the motors slide all the way up in the small shell position. Do not mix these arms up, because if you put the wrong arm in the wrong place, that arm is not going to be able to indicate the sensors, and it's going to go crazy, and it's not even going to know what type of tape you're putting in there. Make sure when you take the arms out, you're putting the arms back in the correct position. That one arm on the left has sensors, so make sure you put the correct arm back with the sensors. Okay, now I got a diagram, as you can see, and basically you have to reinstall these gears with these little dots pointing inward facing each other. As you can see, one wheel has 1 dot, the other wheel has 2 dots. Both of them have to be completely directly across from each other when you install those particular gears. But before you do that, you have to make sure you do one side at a time. Okay, you got to push the arm. The one with the sensors, you got to push that arm all the way up so it's in the lock position going left. Okay, that arm goes up left. That means it's in the loading position going upward. So what you have to do is push that arm. You're going to have to lift it out, slowly lift it up, and you got to drop the gear as you look and make sure that the little dot is pointing to the right in the right spot. You have to do this all at the same time. You got to line the dot up. You got to lift the arm, and you got to place the arm and the actual gear at the same time, making sure that that dot is facing in the right direction. So if you got the 1 dot, it's got to be facing to the right. So right or left, whichever in the diagram it shows you, you got to make sure those dots line up. So you got to lift the arm up, place that gear, and make sure that arm is snug up against going left, meaning in the far loading position. So you got to make sure that arm is nice and snug to the left. You drop the gear and the actual loading the gear in with the dot lining up correctly. Make sure you do this. That's the actual lineup for the actual arm to push the motor forward for the small shell and back for the large shell. You have to make sure the arm is in the correct spot. Make sure you got it all the way up to the left, and you drop the gear down with the dot lining up so it's facing the right, just like in the diagram. Okay, make sure you do this. And then also do the same thing with the left gear. Make sure the 2 dots line up going left, But make sure that as you do that simultaneously, you got to make sure the arm is pushed to the right. Okay, that's how you set up the alignment on the gears. And once you got that in place, okay, you got to make sure, once you got the dots lined up and you got that in place, you got to make sure that those stay in those positions. Okay? All right. Now what you want to do is you want to load the actual motor back in position. Okay, each motor, it has that little plate that goes back on that little pin that you put the C-clip back on. So you're going to want to put the rail in first on the motor. Okay, as you drop that rail in, you got to slide it back into the actual holder on the bottom of each mounting plastic mounting part on the bottom. You have to slide the rail in at the same time in each one of those. But make sure you get the little armature plastic or metal little arm that actually connects to that little C-clip clip. Make sure you get that on there at the same time. Okay? You got to do that on both of these. Make sure you slide the rail in. You lock that little metal plate back down on the actual pin so you can put the C-clamps back on. But before you do that, you got to make sure you roll the gear back so the gear, the arms are actually in the middle, halfway, so they're exposed, so you can make sure they're in the right position. So make sure before you put the motors in, you roll that so you can get those arms facing in the center position before you try to reload the motors and reattach the C-clips. You got to make sure you do that. It's got to, those arms have to be rolled back a little bit so you can expose it, so you can actually put the C-clips back on and install the motors again. But from the picture, you can see this is how you do the alignment on this thing. Now, do not mix the small arms up. Make sure you put the correct arms in the right place. Make sure when you install the gears that the arms are all the way up and then the dots are pointing in the correct positions. Roll the gear back, that little motor back, so the arms start rolling back till it gets halfway, in this actual picture. And once you do that, you can install the motors back, slide them back in the little plastic clips, okay, with the rail, and then drop it down on the little plate where you put the C-clip back on. All right. After you get the motors in a position where they're in the halfway position, like in this photo, and you could put the actual V holder back in position, you should be good to go. The alignment should be correct. That's how you actually do the alignment on the gear assembly for this machine. Make sure you follow these steps and look at the photos closely. But those the wheels that got the little dots on, they have to be correct. You got to set them in the correct positions. Make sure you do this correctly. If you don't, it's going to be totally out of whack. But I'm showing you pictures how you do it, so follow the directions on how you set those gears. Okay, then after you do that, you're going to set your loading carriage back in, plug it in, screw it back down, and flip the machine back over. Plug your ribbons back in, and you should be able to pop a small tape in or a large tape, and it should automatically be in the correct position to throw the motors in the correct position for that tape. But this is how you set the mechanism. If you guys have any questions and you're still having problems, it's not really that difficult. You may have to mess with it a little bit, but make sure you line up the dots. Make sure the arms are all the way up and you hold them in position when you try to lay that gear down so the gear stays in the correct spot. If you guys have any questions, you can always ask me, but this is really the way you do this. Good luck. It's not an easy thing, so if you have any problems, feel free to contact me, and I hope you enjoyed this video.